Imagine a machine that can look at your routine chest x-ray today and tell you with just chilling accuracy that you're going to develop lung cancer 3 years from now.
Right.
And not because it has, like, a crystal ball, but because it can see mathematical patterns in the pixels that are entirely invisible to the human eye.
Yeah, it's not science fiction set 50 years in the future anymore. I mean, right now, artificial intelligence is officially moving out of the research lab and into, well, daily clinical practice.
Exactly. And for you listening right now, it's crucial to understand how this changes the very nature of your healthcare. Because let's face it, we are looking at a global system that is incredibly strained.
Oh, absolutely.
We have skyrocketing costs, massive workforce shortages, an aging global population, and doctors who are just simply overwhelmed by an astronomical amount of patient data generated every single second.
Yeah, the sheer volume of data is unmanageable for a human brain.
It really is. The current state of healthcare feels a bit like trying to navigate a sprawling ancient library that has absolutely no catalog system.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. And the doctors are the librarians, and they're surrounded by millions of books, like your lab results, your genetic data, your medical history. They're doing their best, but they're drowning in pages.
Yeah.
So AI is like finally getting a superpowered search engine. It doesn't just find the right book. It reads the book, cross-references it with a million other medical texts, and highlights the exact sentence the doctor needs to make a life-saving decision.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the true promise of AI in medicine goes far beyond building, futuristic gadgets for top-tier, well-funded hospitals.
Right?
It's fundamentally about solving real-world inequities by identifying hidden patterns in vast oceans of data, whether that's electronic health records or medical imaging or genomic profiles. AI can really democratize access to high-level diagnostics.
Which is huge.
It is. We're talking about bringing world-class healthcare analysis to remote or under-resourced areas where, a human specialist might be hundreds of miles away.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we get into the wild applications, and we are going to talk about nanorobots and mind-controlled exoskeletons today, we really need to establish the foundation of how this intelligence actually operates.
Oh, good idea.
We hear terms thrown around constantly, so let's ground them. When we talk about AI in a medical context, we're largely talking about machine learning, right?
Yes.
Instead of programming a computer with rigid, step-by-step rules, we feed it massive amounts of data and let it recognize the patterns on its own.
Which evolves into deep learning. And that utilizes artificial neural networks, which are systems loosely inspired by the human brain's own architecture.
Okay.
So these networks have multiple layers that process incredibly complex data, like the subtle shading in an MRI scan. And then, of course, we have natural language processing, or NLP.
Right, NLP.
Which allows the algorithm to comprehend, interpret, and even generate human language.
And that natural language processing piece is actually, well, it's the perfect bridge into our first major area in this deep dive, which is the diagnostic revolution.
Absolutely.
Because before an AI can cure you, it has to be able to read your medical file. And let's be honest, a patient's electronic health record is usually a disaster.
A total mess, yeah.
It's full of unstructured data, a doctor's rushed, free text notes, obscure abbreviations, typos, and lab results buried 3 pages deep.
Historically, predicting a patient's trajectory from that chaotic mess was just nearly impossible. I mean, a doctor simply doesn't have the time to synthesize 10 years of fragmented notes during a 15-minute consultation.
Right, they just don't.
But deep learning algorithms excel at this. They can instantly process all of those unstructured clinical notes to predict critical outcomes.
Right.
For example, algorithms are now predicting in-hospital mortality or the sudden onset of sepsis with over 85% accuracy.
Wait, 85%? Because sepsis is notoriously fast and deadly?
It is.
The mechanism behind that prediction is what blows my mind. The AI isn't just looking for a high fever. It's finding hidden correlations. Like maybe a slight temperature bump combined with a very specific minor change in white blood cell count that happened, 3 days ago.
Yeah, patterns so subtle a human wouldn't connect the dots. But the algorithm flags it before the patient even feels sick.
Yeah.
And it's doing the same thing visually with imaging.
Right. And the chest radiographs for lung cancer screening are like a brilliant example of this visual capability.
They really are.
Because human accuracy is actually all over the map here. Depending on how tired the radiologist is, or if a tiny tumor happens to be hiding behind the shadow of a rib bone, human detection rates can sometimes be as low as a quarter of cases.
Yeah, about 23% on the low end.
But the AI algorithms, They don't experience eye strain.
They don't. While human sensitivity ranges broadly from about 23 to 76%, the latest AI algorithms achieve a sensitivity of up to 95.7%. But
Wow.
we have to look at how it sees. The AI does not look at an X-ray the way you or I do, as a picture of a lung. It analyzes pixel density gradients.
Okay, so it's all math.
Exactly. It's calculating the mathematical relationship between millions of individual pixels, recognizing microscopic edge distortions and tissue densities that indicate malignancy long before a tumor is large enough to be visually obvious.
And we see that same mathematical precision in gastrointestinal care, too. During a routine endoscopy, doctors are now using real-time AI systems to spot early colorectal cancer.
Yes, that's a game changer.
It's processing the video feed frame by frame, analyzing the tissue topography, essentially the 3D landscape of your colon, to detect precancerous polyps with over 97% sensitivity.
Yep, 97.3%.
Polyps that a human eye might just glaze right over.
Yep.
And I want to play the role of the skeptical patient for a moment here.
Sure.
If an algorithm is statistically superior at reading an X-ray or an endoscopy camera, aren't we just on a fast track to replacing radiologists and gastroenterologists entirely?
What's fascinating here is that the overarching goal within the medical community is enhancement, not replacement. AI does not possess human clinical judgment, empathy, or the ability to contextualize a patient's life circumstances. What it does incredibly well is remove human fatigue and subjective error from the equation.
So it's more like a tool.
Think of the AI as an ultra-vigilant co-pilot. By acting as this hyper-aware secondary set of eyes, it frees up the human doctor to focus on complex treatment strategies and actual patient care, rather than spending hours staring at pixels in a dark room.
They get to be healers again, instead of data processors.
Exactly.
So we've established how AI can see the diseases we might miss. But seeing the problem is only half the battle. Let's look at how this hyper-awareness actually changes the treatments we receive. We're moving from a paradigm of identifying the disease to engineering the cure.
This is the transition into true personalized medicine. For centuries, medicine has relied on a one-size-fits-all approach based on broad population averages.
Right. If you have disease X, you get drug Y.
Exactly. But AI allows us to integrate your specific genomic sequences, your lifestyle patterns, and your deep medical history to create bespoke treatments tailored to your unique biology.
It's completely upending how we create the drugs themselves, too, because traditional drug development is a remarkably slow, multi-billion-dollar slog. It's basically trial and error.
It really is.
Think of it like having a massive ring with a billion different keys, and you are trying to find the one single key that fits a very specific microscopic lock on a disease cell.
I love that analogy.
Traditional medicine involves trying those keys one by one, which takes decades. Using AI for drug discovery is like scanning the internal tumblers of the lock and then having the AI 3D print the exact key required on the first try.
And the engineering behind that analogy is where it gets truly groundbreaking. We have AI tools like AlphaFold that focus specifically on protein structures.
Right.
Proteins are the tiny machines that drive almost everything in your body, and they are made of long, one-dimensional strings of amino acids that fold up into highly complex, three-dimensional shapes.
And the shape dictates how the protein functions, right?
Exactly. For decades, figuring out how a sequence would fold was one of the hardest problems in biology. AlphaFold solved it. It predicts the 3D structure of these microscopic locks almost instantly.
And once you know the shape of the lock, you can build the perfect drug to jam it. We're seeing generative AI models that don't just search through existing databases of chemicals.
No, they're going way beyond that.
They're literally designing novel molecular structures from scratch. They are inventing new chemical compounds that have never existed in nature, fundamentally expanding the building blocks we have for medicine.
Which brings us to how we deliver those new building blocks into the body, the integration of AI with nanotechnology.
Oh, this is the sci-fi stuff.
We are talking about AI-managed nanorobots, designed to navigate through the human bloodstream to deliver drugs exactly where they are needed and nowhere else.
This sounds like pure science fiction, but the mechanism is surprisingly elegant. Because these nanorobots aren't swimming around with tiny cameras, right?
No, not at all.
They are programmed to navigate using your body's own physiological cues.
Exactly. A prime example is navigating via pH gradients. Fast-growing tumors have a different metabolism than healthy cells. They outstrip their blood supply and end up producing a lot of lactic acid, which makes the microenvironment around a tumor highly acidic.
Okay, so it's a localized change.
Right. These nanorobots are engineered with a specialized polymer shell that remains completely stable in the normal, neutral pH of your bloodstream. But the moment it encounters that acidic pocket around the tumor, the shell degrades, releasing the chemotherapy directly into the cancer cells.
It's like a microscopic smart bomb. You destroy the tumor, but you completely bypass the brutal systemic side effects because the toxic drug isn't flooding the rest of your healthy tissue.
It changes the entire experience of chemotherapy.
It really does. But let's take this from the molecular level up to the macro level. What happens when this hyper-intelligent technology meets the messy, unpredictable, flesh and blood reality of high-stakes arenas, like, say, the operating room?
Well, it forces a complete evolution of the tools we use. Take robotic surgery. Platforms like the Da Vinci system have been around for a while, but historically they were just highly precise, remote-controlled scalpels.
The human surgeon dictated every single micro movement.
Right. Now, AI is being integrated into the software of these platforms. The systems use computer vision to analyze tissue in real time during the surgery, and they are designed to learn from each individual procedure they perform across the globe.
Wait, learning from every procedure?
Yes, refining their techniques to reduce human error over time.
Let me push back on that for a second. If a robotic surgical platform is actively learning from every procedure it does that mean a patient today is getting a mathematically, quote-unquote, better surgery than a patient who had the exact same procedure 6 months ago?
That's the idea, yes.
And more importantly, how do we ensure the machine doesn't learn a bad habit?
This raises an important question, and it highlights one of the most complex engineering challenges in AI right now, which is continuous learning. The goal is constant improvement, yes. But researchers have to combat a phenomenon known as catastrophic forgetting.
Right. Think about the last time you downloaded a major software update for your phone. It comes with all these great new features, but suddenly you realize the update completely wiped out your saved passwords or forgot how to connect to your car's Bluetooth.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
Catastrophic forgetting is the AI equivalent of that. The model learns a new set of data, say a new surgical protocol, but in the process, it overwrites the baseline foundational rules it learned previously.
And in a surgical or diagnostic context, that is unacceptable. Models must constantly adapt to new realities, like emerging COVID-19 variants or new protocols, without losing their historical accuracy.
So how do they fix that?
To solve this, developers use techniques like neural network regularization. Essentially, they mathematically freeze the weights or importance of the pathways that hold the foundational knowledge.
Ah, okay.
It forces the AI to build new pathways for new information, rather than paving over the old ones. It allows the surgeon's co-pilot to learn a new trick without forgetting how to tie a suture.
That makes total sense. You need a stable foundation.
Yeah.
We see a similar synergy of robotics and foundational biology and physical rehabilitation, too.
Yes, exoskeletons.
Right. The use of AI-driven exoskeletons like the hybrid assistive limb goes way beyond just being a mechanical brace. If someone suffers a spinal cord injury, their brain might still be trying to send the signal to move their leg, but the connection is damaged, so the signal is incredibly weak.
Too weak to move the muscle, but not too weak to be detected.
Wow.
The exoskeleton uses surface sensors on the skin to pick up those faint, microvolt bioelectrical signals. The AI processes that electrical intent in real time and instantly converts it into coordinated joint movement in the robotic suit.
That's incredible.
It physically walks the patient by decoding the whispers of their damaged nervous system.
It's literally bridging the gap in the nervous system with code. And we are seeing that same predictive, high-stakes power applied to cancer care, right? Particularly with treatments that are traditionally a massive gamble, like neoadjuvant therapy for breast cancer.
Yeah, neoadjuvant therapy is the systemic treatment, usually aggressive chemotherapy or hormone therapy, given before surgery to try and shrink a tumor. It is incredibly tough on the body.
I can imagine.
And the tragic reality of oncology is that patient responses vary wildly. One patient might see the tumor disappear, while another endures all the toxicity, and the tumor doesn't shrink a millimeter.
And conventional methods to predict if the therapy will actually work are pretty limited. But AI changes the equation by analyzing digital pathology.
Right.
It looks at the biopsy tissue at a microscopic level and integrates that visual data with the tumor's specific molecular markers. Essentially, the unique protein receptors on the surface of the cancer cells that dictate how the tumor behaves.
By analyzing thousands of previous cases with similar cellular topographies and receptor profiles, the AI can predict how well a specific patient's tumor will respond to the specific therapy before they ever take the first dose.
So it's personalized prediction.
Exactly. It spares patients from suffering through highly toxic, ineffective treatments and quickly pivots them to a therapy strategy that has a mathematical probability of working.
It's shifting oncology from trial and error to targeted strikes. And this hyper-monitoring isn't just staying in the hospital wing, it's moving into our daily lives.
Wearables.
Yeah. The integration of AI with wearable technology means proactive health management is quite literally attached to your body.
The smartwatches we wear today are running lightweight deep learning models that do far more than just track our steps. By continuously analyzing the stream of biometric data like your heart rate variability and blood oxygen levels, they can detect subtle pathological signatures.
Before you even feel anything.
We are seeing algorithms identify the early indicators of hypertension or cardiac arrhythmias days or weeks before a patient feels any chest flutters.
And it extends beyond physical ailments into mental health, too.
Yeah.
Virtual health assistants utilizing natural language processing are now capable of analyzing linguistic patterns.
This is a really fascinating area.
When you interact with an AI chatbot, it isn't just registering the meaning of your words, it is analyzing your syntax, the specific vocabulary you choose, and even the length of the pauses between your sentences.
Yeah.
Through these conversational exchanges, the AI can detect early signs of depression or anxiety, providing a vital early warning system for mental health crises.
But this brings us to a critical juncture. All of these advancements, bespoke drugs, predictive oncology, exoskeletons, they rely entirely on the integrity of the data and the systems processing it. We have to address the friction points, because technology is built by humans, and humans have blind spots.
So what happens when the machine gets it wrong, or when the engineering fundamentally fails a massive portion of the global population?
That's the million-dollar question.
This is an engineering hurdle known as data bias. We talked about how AI learns by analyzing vast oceans of data. But if you train an algorithm on a skewed data set, you get skewed medicine. There's an acronym used in data science that explains this perfectly. WEIRD. It stands for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, and Democratic.
Yes. Historically, a massive percentage of medical research, genetic sequencing, and clinical trial data has been collected from these weird populations simply because that's where the funding and infrastructure were concentrated.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If you train a diagnostic AI algorithm almost exclusively on the genetic markers, skin types, and health outcomes of a weird population, its predictions will naturally be optimized for that specific demographic.
It's an issue of garbage in, garbage out on a global scale.
Exactly. It's like engineering a state-of-the-art self-driving car and training its computer entirely on sunny street highways in California. It will perform flawlessly. But if you suddenly drop that exact same car into a chaotic, snowy Canadian winter, it's not just going to be unhelpful, it's actively dangerous. It will confidently apply the wrong rules to a new environment. An AI trained on light skin might entirely misdiagnose a malignant melanoma on dark skin because it simply lacks the mathematical reference points.
The algorithm doesn't know what it doesn't know. And that lack of transparency feeds directly into the black box problem. Often, deep learning models are so complex that they output a highly accurate diagnosis, but they cannot show their work.
Which is a massive problem for clinical trust. If an AI tells a doctor this patient has a 90% chance of developing sepsis in the next 2 hours, but the algorithm won't explain why it thinks that, how can the doctor ethically prescribe a high-risk, aggressive treatment?
That is where the field of explainable AI is becoming mandatory. We need to make the invisible reasoning of the machine visible to the human.
Okay, so how do we do that?
A great example of this is a technique called GradCam. When an AI analyzes a retinal image and diagnoses diabetic retinopathy, it doesn't just spit out a yes or no. GradCam generates a vibrant heat map overlaid directly onto the patient's scan.
Oh, wow.
It uses colors to explicitly highlight the exact clusters of the specific microaneurysms or damaged blood vessels that trigger the algorithm's decision.
It forces the black box to become a glass box. The doctor can look at the red zone on the heat map and say, I see exactly what you're looking at.
Exactly. It builds trust.
That transparency is also vital for system security, right? If hospitals are relying on AI to dictate insulin delivery or navigate surgical tools, they have to protect against adversarial attacks.
Yes, sensor spoofing.
Where bad actors subtly alter the incoming medical data to trick the algorithm into making a lethal miscalculation.
We also have to solve the connectivity gap. At the start, we talked about AI democratizing healthcare in remote, low-resource areas. But you can't run a massive cloud-based AI diagnostic tool in a rural village that doesn't have a reliable internet connection.
So how is that being addressed?
The solution to this is a concept called edge computing. Instead of sending the data up to the cloud to be processed by a supercomputer, you move the intelligence directly onto the device itself.
You essentially shrink the brain so it fits in the palm of your hand. Engineers do this by taking a massive AI model and pruning it, stripping away millions of unnecessary neural connections until the model is incredibly lightweight without sacrificing its core accuracy.
Like MobileNet models.
Exactly.
We are already seeing this deployed with portable ultrasound systems. The algorithmic model is compressed and lives directly on the ultrasound machine's hardware.
So it's totally offline.
Right. A clinician in a remote clinic can scan a patient's heart and get real-time AI-assisted image analysis and diagnosis without needing a single bar of cell service or Wi-Fi. The intelligence is baked directly into the battery-powered hardware.
That is how we actually bridge the digital divide. Okay, let's bring all of these threads together. What we've explored today in this deep dive is not just a series of isolated tech upgrades. It is a massive systemic shift.
It truly is.
AI is rapidly forcing the entire medical field to evolve from a reactive, generalized model into a proactive, hyper-personalized system. We are moving from spotting microscopic tumors hidden in pixel gradients to designing entirely new chemical keys for our biological locks.
To powering the exoskeletons that help paralyzed patients walk again. The potential to alleviate human suffering is truly staggering, provided we can continue to engineer solutions for the infrastructural hurdles and ensure our data represents the entirety of the human population.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you listening right now, remember that this is the reality of your next checkup. It's the smartwatch currently monitoring your pulse wave velocity on your wrist. It's the targeted medication waiting at your pharmacy. The medical library finally has a catalog, and the search engine is reading the books for us.
To leave you with a final thought as you navigate this new landscape. As these AI systems gain the ability to continuously monitor our vitals, decode the deepest layers of our genetics, and predict our future illnesses before we feel a single physical symptom, AI will soon know the exact state of our bodies far better than we know it ourselves.
That's a wild thought.
When a machine understands your health better than your own brain does, how will that fundamentally change what it means to be in tune with your own body?
When an algorithm isn't just showing you a broken bone, but predicting the fracture years before you even trip and fall, that is a new reality entirely. Thanks for diving deep with us today.